Hi guys. Today we have a Sony VGN-FW laptop, which has sound problem. As you see, sound driver is connexant, which is recognized and installed. Driver is completely recognized now, but there is no sound. Let me play a video and show you the problem. As you see, it's the maximum volume, but there is no sound. I checked it with a headphone as well. There is no sound output from the headphone either. Now I want to know if sound problem originates from the speaker, audio card, or which component of the audio circuit. Let's check and see where the problem originates from. This is mainboard schematic. Let's zoom in the audio block. This is audio block. This is audio IC, Realtek. Amplifier and speaker. 2 internal 1-watt speakers. An amplifier and audio IC, which are connected to South Bridge. In fact, audio block is 3 parts: audio IC, amplifier and speaker. I'll show you these 3 parts on the mainboard and explain them there. This is the mainboard. There are 2 speakers in here, and audio IC is at the bottom. New 18 is the audio IC. This block has been heated and PCB color is changed. And this is U19, which is amplifier IC. And there is a connector under it, which is connected to headphone and microphone jack. These are the audio blocks. In fact, there are 3 parts for troubleshooting the audio block. First, you should test speaker. I recommend 2 ways to test speakers, besides the ways you know. Testing amplifier IC signal, and testing audio IC. As you know, each IC has power and input and output. I'll show you in schematic as well. Meaning, if you want to know if an IC is okay or not, you need to test its power first, and then you should test its input and output signals. I made equipment for testing amplifier, which I'm going to show you. There is a signal injector, so you need to apply signal to amplifier input. Then you hear beep from the speaker, which you can test by applying audio noise with my hand amplifier to speaker. And I'm going to show this practically. And once you hear wired sound from the speaker, which is slightly high sound, so there would be no need to test amplifier IC power. This is the equipment I made. It's a signal injector. It has 2 transistors, which makes a stable multi-regulator. Symmetric signal exits it, which is near 700 Hz, and you can hear sound from speaker. I start testing from the speaker now. Speaker test, yeah. With analog ohm meter, in range R*1. There is no need to set 0. Probes don't matter either. There are 2 speakers, which can be seen on connector. You don't even need to remove the speaker from the connector. You can also test connector by placing the probes under the connector. Black and white wires are 1 speaker, and the black and red wires are 1 speaker. I place probes on here. I place one of the probes on pin 1 or 2 of speaker. and I connect and disconnect the other probe. Weak noise sound can be heard from the speaker. I should say that you might not hear it. Like this. There is a very weak noise sound. Voltage is present in AA battery in the analog ohm meter. There is 4 ohm in speaker. So you can measure ohm in this way. Next speaker. I place a probe. Let me take the speaker a little closer. Could you please test the other speaker? I think it's completely clear now. I brought a bigger speaker, in case the noise sound can't be heard properly. So I'll test with this one. I don't know if it could be heard because the other speaker is smaller. This is similar to the other one. It has a diaphragm layer and a magnet. This is the same, diaphragm layer with smaller magnet. And there is a coil inside the magnet. That produces sound. Let me test the sound. How do you do that? I place and hold a probe on one pin and connect and disconnect the other probe on another pin. So it is like this. Speakers have resistance. For example, this one's is 16 ohm and 3 watt, maximum 5 watt. This speaker is 4 ohm and 1 watt. There is a pair of 4 ohm and 1 watt speaker in the laptop. I have a question. For example, if speaker gets out of order, should we consider wattage and ohm amount? Yes, and you need to consider the size as well. Because you need to place the new speaker in the old speaker's block. After that, the things you need to be careful about are wattage and ohm amount. But let's assume you don't have a 4 ohm speaker. You can use a 8 ohm speaker. It's not vital. But it's better to use the exact same ohm amount, because amplifier circuit is designed with the ohm of speaker. So it's better to use the same ohm amount. Let me show it in schematic as well. We could test it this way as well. We can test the speaker and its direction on PCB from amplifier output. By placing a probe on a pin and connecting and disconnecting the other probe. Now I show you the schematic. U19. The amplifier IC. This is the amplifier IC. This is U19. As I said, each IC has an input voltage. This is 5 volt of amplifier IC, which comes from plus 5 VRUN, meaning switching 5 volt. That passes through coil and fuse. Plus 5 VAMP is provided from plus 5 VRUN. Let me show you the outputs now. Pins 14 and 18 are the route. And pins 8 and 4 are loud. Right and left speaker. And the inputs. And the main input is pin 17. And pin 5 is left input. Right and left inputs. Let me zoom out a little. SPK_R and SPK_L are the inputs, which come from audio IC. The thing we did on the speaker. We could have done it in here as well, meaning, by placing multimeters probes on pins 8 and 4 of amplifier IC. You can test the direction, connector and speaker. And you can test them by checking pins 14 and 18. This is pin 1. There is a mark on pin 1. Pin 4. Pins 5, 6, 7, 8. You can hear the wired sound of speaker. I place probe on pin 4 and connect and disconnect on pin 8.
یعنی در واقع مسیر
Noise sound of speaker means that
بلنگو
the direction of amplifier output to left speaker is okay.
از اینجا تا اسپیکر لفتمون سالم هستش.
Now I want to test right speaker, pins 14 and 18.
پای 14 و 18
I place probe on pin 14 and connect and disconnect the probe on pin 18. There is noise sound. Small noise. So in this way,
با این تست
we tested speaker, connector, direction of amplifier output to speaker,
تا اسپیکر رو تست کردیم
and we realized that the direction is okay.
سالمه.
Now I need to test amplifier.
تست امپلیفایر.
To test amplifier,
امپلیفایر
I should turn on the laptop
بس بکنیم سویچ بکنیم.
and apply a signal to its input. Now let me show you the input in the schematic.
چیز نشون میدم خدمتتون.
Right main input as pin 17, and left main input as pin 5.
لفتمون 5.
Could you please show it again? Let me zoom in a little. Pin 5 is the main input of left,
ورودی اصلی
and pin 17 is the main input of right.
ورودی اصلی را
There are two inputs in here. L and R mean left and right. Because the audio system stereo, it has two bands.
مسیراش کلا استریو از ورود تا خود اسپیکر مسیر استریو.
I made a signal injector. You can make one as well. I'll put the circuit too. You can make it.
تهیه بکنید.
I connect black wire as negative and red wire as positive. Make sure not to apply more than 3 volt, because if higher voltage is applied, output signal will be higher, and it might damage the audio system of laptop. It is 2.9 volt now. Don't apply more than 3 volt, because audio circuits are usually 3 volt. I connect output.
اینجوری من به این شکل گفتم.
Now I put away signal injector.
کنار.
I put a knob for it as well,
من براش گذاشتم که
so that I can get different level signals.
سیگنال‌های مختلف از
I set it on maximum.
میذارم.
I place one wire on GND.
به شاسی بس میکنید به GND و دستگاهم
I plug adapter and turn on laptop.
بس میکنید و
As power key had problems, I turn on the laptop from here.
کلید پاورش این مقدار مشکل بود در آوردن اینجا من روشن شد. این چراغ نارنجی اگه روشن میشه بله روشن شد.
Pin 5.
پای 1 2 3 4 5
You can hear it easily. It was left direction.
مسیر چپمون بود و
Now I test right direction.
راستمون 11 12 14
Pin 17. Yes. So with this sound test,
الان با این تست صدا با این تست بو
we realize that the amplifier is okay, so there is no need to check voltages of amplifier now.
بررسی کردن موارد دیگه امپلیفایر
This means we need to go back in,
باید برگردیم عقب‌تر و
check the problem in the audio IC.
آیسی صدا بررسی کنیم.
U18 is the audio IC.
18
Let me search it.
می‌کنیم.
This is the audio IC.
صدامونه
U18.
18
Pins 35 and 36 are the outputs,
6
which are connected to amplifier input.
امپلیفایر بس میشه.
I could have tested the audio with pins 35 and 36 as well.
6 هم میتونستیم بگیریم که
In that way, the circuit between two ICs would have been tested. And this IC has many input voltage.
دارای چند تا تغییر
As you see, plus 3 VRUN as in here,
مناظره می‌کنیم.
plus 1_5 VRUN which is switching voltage. It has an analog voltage as well, VDD analog. The first thing we need to do with this IC is that, because it has 3 input voltage, so we should test all 3 voltages. If the voltages are okay, we should check the signals. Pin 1 has 3 volt. Pin 1 has 3 volt. Either 3 volt or 1.5 volt should be present on pin 9. But there are 2 directions in here, so it's enough to check one of the directions. If voltage is present in pin 1, then the 3 volt is okay. And pins 25 and 38 are analog voltages. Pin 1 of the IC is completely obvious in here. 3.3 volt is present. And I check pin 25. Voltage is absent in here. A VDD is not present on the mainboard. Pins 25 and 38. Analog VDD. I search analog VDD. The VDDA which is written in here. VDDA. Let's see where it comes from. It's here, U20 IC. Pin 1 is the input. And the output is pin 6. VDDA_R is written in here. R means this resistor. And after resistor, there is VDDA. And 5 volts should be present on pin 6 of U20 IC. 5 volts should be present on pin 1 as well. Have a look at the enable pin. It comes from the input voltage directly, which means it won't be enabled by anywhere else. For example, I/O or South Bridge. It will be activated by 5 VRUN entrance, and the pin 6 is the output. In fact, in the exact time of turning on the laptop and providing 5 VRUN, there will be 5 volt on analog part of audio IC. Let's find U20 on the circuit. As you see, this is U20 IC, which was heated before. Pin 1 is removed. Pin 1 is removed. Pins 1 and 3 can't be seen on the circuit. Is this a 6-pin IC? It should be a 6-pin IC, but only 4 pins can be seen. Pins 1 and 3 are not on the circuit. This IC is damaged, and it needs to be changed. Then we'll test it again. I should say that voltage doesn't enter the IC. Because of that, there is no output. So I only change U20 for now, so that 5 volt analog will be provided. I didn't find the IC, so I removed the rust of the pin. These pins were rusted. It might be because of moisture infiltration on the touchpad. This part was rusted. Even the capacitor's pins were rusted. I changed the capacitors. I connected 2 pins of U20 IC to motherboard. This IC provides 5 analog voltage of audio IC, and 5 VRUN enters its pin 1. Voltage didn't enter because of rust. Now I test it. I turn on the laptop. This is pin 1, which is 5 volt input, and pin 6 is 5 volt output. As you see, 4.6 volt is present. It is the 5 analog voltage of audio IC. Voltage problem of U18 IC is solved. I should say something that I didn't mention during the video,
در بین ویدیو مطرح نکردم دوستان.
and I think it's necessary to be said.
خدمتتون.
Pins 35 and 36 of this IC.
این IC
Take a look.
در اینجا ببینید.
I've tested this before, but I didn't mention it in the video. Around 2 to 2.5 volts should be the output of these two pins.
داشته باشه.
These are the output signals of this IC,
خروجی این IC هست.
which are connected to amplifier signal input,
Amplifier هست.
which means sound is transferred to amplifier from this IC. Then it is transferred to speaker. This means you can test these two pins before testing power of this IC, and that's enough. If voltage is absent in here, then you can check power, which I did this, but I didn't mention it in the video. Now I check it again. 2.2 volt. There is noisy sound. By placing my finger on the probe, the noise will be applied from my hand and is transferred to the speaker through the amplifier. Let's assemble the laptop and check the audio. I almost assembled the laptop, and I want to test if audio problem is solved or not. Let's play a video. As you see, audio problem is solved, and it's totally okay. Thanks for watching, smiley face.